Hello everybody, it's Whiskey11 and welcome back to the Gaming Lounge. And in this video, we are going to talk about the USS California in World of Warships. So there I was, minding my own business, just having a ball, when I heard that Wargaming had released a new US standard battleship to the game. So what do? Well, I did what any diehard lover of US standard battleships would do. Started watching reviews, and what followed was, me watching a well-known community contributor proceeding to trash talk the ship. And without a doubt, I knew that I had to find out just how bad this ship is or isn't. So what we have here is a Tennessee-class battleship. It is effectively a New Mexico with a Colorado hull and the superstructure of a South Dakota. I mean, this is a real ship. This is exactly how the ship looked in 1943. The Tennessee looked exactly like this as well, and that's a result of Pearl Harbor and the damage that they took there. Without going too much further into the history of it, effectively, these ships, they implemented a lot of improvements. And one of those improvements is she got thick, and it's pretty. Like, I'm a sucker for U.S. battleships to begin with. I'm a sucker for U.S. standard battleships even more so. But you talk about adding on some torpedo bulges and, beautiful. So what most people seem to latch on with regards to the California in comparison to the Tech Tree Tier 7 Colorado is the downgrade in firepower for a substantial increase in anti-aircraft capability. And in one sense, California completely power creeps Colorado straight into irrelevance on that front. Yet, on the other hand, Colorado can actually throw a punch, while California really struggles to throw it. The problem isn't necessarily the 14-inch guns, though. New Mexico and Arizona do an okay job at Tier 8. But California sees Tier 9s fairly regularly, and the guns just seem really unreliable to me. Horizontal dispersion is huge, completely unpredictable, but the vertical dispersion is actually scary good. She never seems to hit anything vital, though, when shells land around or on a ship. And that really can be quite frustrating. Especially since when you do finally hit something vital, it feels like you've struggled for years to achieve that one Citadel hit. This is in direct contrast to Arizona and New Mexico, which regularly pay off with juicy Citadel hits and devastating strikes. A large part of that, of course, having to do with the matchmaking. Tier 7 matchmaking isn't what it used to be. You're no longer seeing only Tier 5 matches, and, it kind of makes the ship a bit of a mixed bag. In terms of play style, California requires your absolute obedience to map positioning. Failure to do so results in poor play always. This is a trait of all the U.S. standard battleships, and if you played through and mastered New Mexico and Colorado, you understand this principle very well. If you aren't in the correct position, you either never get into the correct position or you die trying to get there. It's also essential for damage dealing as well. You'll never overmatch the bow of most cruisers you face, which means you have to take advantage of the moments where they're the weakest, which is when they're avoiding your teammates' fire and exposing their broadside to you. Using California's downright criminal levels of concealment is super critical. Get into the right position, fire at broadsides. Should be fairly straightforward, right? So how does one actually position themselves in game? Well, I'm going to hope you at least have a fairly decent idea of the general paths that players take on various maps. If you don't, you really need to go watch my video on situational awareness and actually play the game a little bit more to fully appreciate just what I mean by you need to be in the right position. To really summarize it, once you know where the enemies generally go, put yourself in the place to be at their broadside or take advantage of their broadsides as they turn away from your team's fire. That's especially true at the very beginning of a match. I cannot stress this enough. The ship is not capable of being a bow camper or a bow shooter. If you're hoping to overmatch the nose of a ship, you might as well shoot HE at it because there's nothing else that you're going to do damage-wise. It just flat does not work. 14-inch guns facing Tier 8 and Tier 9 with any regularity is always going to struggle to deal damage front on. Especially since you've got most heavy cruisers like Des Moines, Baltimore, well, I guess Des Moines Tier 10, but Baltimore, Buffalo, Hipper, all of those ships have enough bow armor that you're just never going to overmatch the front of it. If you must shoot at the front of a ship, use high explosive. I can't stress that either. And the HE, is actually pretty good. It's actually really fun to smack destroyers with 8 to 11k salvos because they just flat don't expect it. The other interesting part about this ship is because it has 5-inch 38 secondaries, for whatever reason, California actually is a pretty brutal secondary ship. The secondaries aren't quite as long-ranged or as punishing as, say, Georgia's or Massachusetts or Ohio's, but they're actually pretty solid. It starts fires reliably too, so if you are forced to shoot at angled ships or worse, use the bows, use high explosive. So at the end of the day, is the trade-off for the anti-aircraft increase worth it over the loss of firepower going from 16-inch guns to 14-inch guns? Yes and no. Tier 8 CVs effectively ignore you even with full AA build. I mean, they either ignore you just outright, or they just ignore the fact that you have anti-aircraft and just hover around you anyway. And Tier 6 CVs are effectively worthless against Colorado's AA anyway, so adding more just makes you nearly immune to that second attack. Alternatives? I don't know. In terms of alternative playstyles, I really want to throw my secondary build captain on California to see if I can get those secondaries to work a little bit better, but the problem is getting there. Again, you're stuck at 21 knots. That said, I think California is still fun. I still think it's a rewarding ship to play. It really favors those who are capable of being in the right position at the right time to really maximize their damage potential. You have to know where to be at on the map in order to really take full-on advantage of California's full range of abilities. And the nice part is she does give you some tools to work with. So let's go ahead and let's talk about those stats, and then we'll get on to the upgrades of captain builds. We'll talk a little bit about those, and then we'll cut on into the battle video. So in terms of stats, we got 58,300 hit points. Not too shabby. Come over here to Colorado. It's 1,000 less hit points than Colorado. Torpedo protection oddly goes down from Colorado. 37% down to 35%, which makes no sense whatsoever. So for those of us who played back in closed beta, Wargaming was adamant about the need to, accurately measure the depths of battleship holes so that they could accurately create a torpedo damage reduction value. And that had to do almost entirely with the thickness of the torpedo bulge. There's a little bit of a fudge factor there for balancing, but why doesn't this ship have better torpedo bulge protection? This thing is nearly a quarter wider than the Colorado is, and it has 2% less torpedo damage reduction? Really, Wargaming? I mean, they had to, add all of this just to fit the 5-inch 38 secondaries on the side of the ship. They had to build in this massive bulge for it. And that's on top of the already built-in bulge from the base hull design. I don't get it. Anywho, enough griping about that. The main battery is the... you have 4 triple turrets of 14-inch 50 caliber Mark 7 guns. They have a 19.9 kilometer firing range, reload time of 34.2 seconds, which is a bit on the long side, not going to lie. 180 degree turn time, 43.4 seconds. You've got 259 meter max dispersion. That's again at that maximum 19.9 kilometer range. HE shells do 5,000 damage, 30% fire starting chance, 59 millimeters of armor penetration. AP shells, 10,500 for the max damage. The AP shells go 823 meters per second. The HE shells go 861. So there is a difference in the amount of lead between the HE shells and the AP shells. You need to pay attention to that because it's going to change where you need to aim. Secondary battery. You have 8 dual 5-inch 38 Mark 32 dual-purpose gun mounts. These are the U.S. battleship standards. They just never go away. 6.3 kilometer maximum firing range. That's going to be with advanced firing training on the captain and nothing else. So again, you can push that out a little bit further with the secondary upgrade on the ship, but not a huge distance. 1,800 damage, but a 5% fire chance, which is pretty good. In terms of anti-aircraft defense, 41 dual 20mm Oerlikons, and this thing is just littered with them. You have 14 quad 40mm Bofors, and then, of course, the 8 5-inch 38s. Your anti-aircraft bubble starts out at 5.8 kilometers, and you get a 35% boost to damage with the priority sector reinforcement. Max speed, 21.5 knots. That's going to be with the speed flag. Yeah, so it gets slower. So we take that off, and it's down to 20.5. So you gain a single knot from that. 640 meter turning circle radius, 11.8 seconds rudder shift time. And I will tell you, it does not feel like either of those stats are true. This thing is actually surprisingly lethargic, given the unwilling to turn, given those stats. And I really wish these stats a little bit better reflected how the ship actually performed in game. It's almost like the rudder shift module doesn't seem to really help at all. The ship just doesn't want to actually turn. Once it gets turning, it doesn't want to stop turning either. Detection range by sea, 11.8 kilometers. Again, that's really good, in my opinion. Colorado, 14.6, and that's with the captain with concealment expert. That's a rather huge difference. 2 kilometers, actually over 2 kilometers, wasn't it? Yeah. That's pretty impressive. It's almost 3 kilometers. A huge difference. Detection range by air, 8.7 kilometers. So overall, stats-wise, you can see there's a little bit of a trade-off there, but definitely a massive boost in anti-aircraft power. In my opinion, a much larger boost in secondary power, obviously, because you've got 8 guns instead of the 5 that's on the Colorado. But overall, not too bad in terms of stats. Upgrades. So the first upgrade slot, my recommendation is Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1. Through all the games that I've played with it so far, I have yet to have the main battery get taken out, so I don't see any reason to take Main Armament Mod 1. But it's there if for whatever reason you think it's necessary. But for Auxiliary Armament Mod 1, that's going to basically double the hit point pool of your secondaries and your anti-aircraft batteries. It's just going to help those AA guns stay in the fight a little bit longer. I'm not worried about losing 5-inch 38 turrets. They don't go down very often. Detonations in a battleship, not something really worth paying attention to. In the second slot, Damage Control System Mod 1, 5% reduction in the chance of catching fire, 3% reduction in the chance of flooding. No reason to take engine room protection. If your damage control party is down, chances are bad things have happened. And losing your engines or your steering usually only happens with torpedoes. And you got that thick torpedo belt, even though it doesn't reduce a whole lot of damage, it does seem to do a decent job of eliminating floodings and damage to the engine room and steering components. In the third slot, we've got a couple of different options that we could go. Main Battery Mod 2 for the traverse speed, 15% increase in the traverse speed. To me, this is very important on these standard battleships. The turrets are kind of slow at turning, and so the faster I can get them on to a target, the better off I am overall. Again, I kind of want to play with the secondary build just to see what it's like, but obviously the problem with the secondary build is even if you increase the range by 20% and decrease the dispersion by 20%, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll ever get into range to use those secondaries because this ship is glacier slow. AA Guns Mod 1 for 20% reduction in the time it takes to switch your priority AA, or not switch, but to activate your priority AA sector prep time. 20% reduction in that. I know some community contributors are throwing out Artillery Plotting Room 1. I don't buy it. 16% increase in range, 20 kilometers. I never felt myself really wanting, especially since I used the spotting plane almost exclusively. There was only a couple of times, but again, the ship's dispersion and sigma value is such that shooting at those really long ranges doesn't really gain you much. And then, of course, you're firing at ships that have much better deck armor and turret armor than what you would see as a New Mexico or an Arizona at tier 6. And so as a result, I really don't feel like the added range gains you a whole lot. So in my opinion, stick to main battery mod 2 or AA Guns mod 1, at least until I can come back and retest the secondary battery mod, just for the grins of it all. In the last slot, you guys know me, I'm a huge proponent for Steering Gears mod 1 for that 20% reduction in the rudder shift time. I absolutely dislike taking damage, and so for me, avoiding it altogether is usually better than just a flat reduction in the time it takes to extinguish a fire or recover from a flood time. But some people really actually enjoy this. I've even had some people make the comment that propulsion mod 1 is somehow of benefit to the ship. I don't know how. 50% reduction in the time it takes to reach full speed while accelerating. To my knowledge, this module hasn't changed recently, so it's still only going to impact the ship in that, sub 5 knot range. If you're below 5 knots in this ship, it's probably because you beached, which means you weren't paying attention, which means you probably deserve the punishment you're about to receive. So for me, Steering Gears mod 1 is the one that I recommend. Let's talk captain skills real briefly. I'm not going to go do a whole lot of videos to this. I just threw my Montana captain on there. He's preventative maintenance expert, marksman, superintendent, concealment expert. That's the base 10. From there, I usually go AFT, BFT, then adrenaline rush. I know some people kind of look at this and go, where's fire prevention? Well, I really don't find it all that useful. I guess even in this horrible world of HE spam, we're talking about spending 4 points on a skill. It does allow you to stay in the fight a little bit longer, but the problem with this ship is once you're stuck into a fight, you're not escaping it. So you'd either better battle that fight out and win it, or you're basically done. So for me, I really didn't find myself lighting on fire super easily in spite of having all of that superstructure. I really didn't find it all that useful. You could play around with this. You could go to a dedicated anti-aircraft build. You used to be able to. Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, it's whatever. So, I mean, you have a couple of different options out there that you could take as far as other things if you wanted to. Again, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Maybe manual fire control for secondaries would be kind of fun just to kind of throw it out there a little bit. I do have an entire video on battleship skills for U.S. battleships. I still think that video is very relevant, even though there have been a number of changes to the captain skills since that video came out. I will link that down in the description to this video. So, with all of that, we've kind of covered everything in port. Let's go look at the ship in a battle video. Alright, so as I said, California can be a little bit of a mixed bag, and so I've had to kind of cherry pick this battle a little bit just to kind of show what happens when you do get it right. My average damage over the 10 or so games I played with it thus far is somewhere around 70-ish thousand damage. Maybe a little bit lower than that, 58, 60,000, somewhere in that range. The biggest thing is, again, knowing map positioning. So we are on, I believe this is Shard? No, this isn't Shards. I don't remember what the name of this map is. It really doesn't matter. What I do know is that your primary battle locations happen at A and happen at C, with ships that spawn on the eastern side of the map almost universally heading far east, which means that if I can get myself roughly in the center, we're going to have a much better time of finding broadsides for us to shoot at. Now, this map also has a tendency to screw ships that go to B at the beginning of the match. So here's one of the advantages to only having 21 knots. It takes you a long time to get there. As a result of that, we can actually take advantage of this ship's stealth, and we also get lucky with how the enemy team reacts, and you'll see that, and I'll try my best to point that out as the battle video goes on. It's, like I said, we get kind of lucky with how this actually ends up working out. That said, tactics-wise, again, we got to get ourselves to where we can see broadsides. So, because we spawned on the east part of this map and we don't have the speed to flex to the other side, and we see their team comp right off the bat is headed exactly as I thought they would, we're going to keep sailing towards the B cap and see what all we can get ourselves engaged with. Now we have Bugioni here. We'll take a pot shot at him. That's really criminally under-led shot, but, hey, sometimes you get lucky. You miss every shot you don't take. Sometimes you miss even if you do take it. I don't know why Dragon My Feet wants to provide cover for me, given the fact that California tends to not be that worthwhile of a ship. It's not what I would call linchpin ship where you can form an entire team strat around it. Like, in Iowa, you could do that. I would say that's definitely not going to happen here with the California. So as you can see, this is actually paying out really well for us. So we've got Akatsuki here, or Akatsuki, according to some people. We got her sitting there. She's broadside, waiting for those guns to come up. 34-second reload time. But, it is what it is. It's broadside to us. Their entire team is basically broadside to us. So as long as we can keep range and get our guns reloaded in time, we can actually contribute to the death of the enemy fleets. And down she goes in first blood. Oh, such an elephant lady. We probably would have gotten her with the second salvo if we missed with the first, so... Yes. A bit cheeky in this. Okay, so we've been detected for a long time. I'm surprised more ships haven't fired at us, but because we are taking some fire, we're going to go ahead and turn in. So as you can see, we can see on the map just how their team is kind of playing out the strat. You got a large number of ships that are headed to the east, and you've got a Massachusetts and a Farragut, and the Ognovoy are all over, headed effectively towards A. So we got Hipper, which is way out in front of his team there, and I underled him a little bit, but I'll take that Citadel and a normal pen and an overpen for 11,000 damage. I consider that to be acceptable. I don't know why the game... That's interesting. The damage counter is cut off. Huh. Just now noticed that. All right, so we get to see what Ryujo has for RAA. Priority sector has been reinforced. Got about 7 seconds left on it. As you can see, not exactly finally shooting down some targets. Okay, we got our shot off on the Hipper. We're going to turn in now. This is what I was talking about. Look at the rudder shift time. There goes another aircraft as he gets a little bit closer. He basically only lost 2 aircraft until he dropped the torpedoes. And then once he dropped the torpedoes, he lost 3 more. And 4 more. All right, well, we're in a really good place. So they've changed up their strat a little bit. We have Cossack here that's going to help. Ooh, New Mexico is going to catch us broadside. Oh, he missed. We got ourselves a Cossack here that's in a fairly good place to help us out in case there's any other battleships. And we've got ourselves a broadside, roughly, New Mexico and Massachusetts. So let's see what we can get there. Oops, Citadel for 13,650 damage. Again, we're turning away. We're going to work kind of a serpentine pattern here. Where we turn towards and turn away as we get detected and undetected, because we want to stay within range of all of these ships. We don't want these massive lead times for shells impacting. We also want to put ourselves in a good position to deal with the enemy ships that are in the sea cap at the moment. So once again, New Mexico's over there. Let's see what we can get. Change the lead up a little bit because I was a little far ahead of him. And then he ends up actually turning, so not going to get much out of that salvo if we get anything at all. Which I don't think we got anything, so now we're going to turn in. And we're going to... I thought maybe we would get lucky with some ships over there, but as you can see, we're no longer detected. which is good news. And they have no more destroyers, so that's the other part of this that really kind of helped us out a bit. Their lack of destroyers. I wish this mountain wasn't in the way. This Atlanta would be so dead. Oh. It's hard to really build a strat. This is one of the downsides to this ship. You know, you have the issue. Oh, of course, right as I fire, the Atlanta pops up real briefly. But we got ourselves broadside Gneisenau. And this is what I was talking about. Okay, so you had broadside Gneisenau and you didn't have enough accuracy. You got 3 out of 12 shells hit and you did 5,800 damage. That's not a lot of damage. I don't care what anybody says. And now we're sitting here, we're kind of a victim here of Atlanta and Gneisenau's gunnery. And their New Mexico does some damage, but we managed to mitigate the worst of Gneisenau's damage. Atlanta, she's slowing down. I can tell she's going to go forward again. So we went ahead and we dumped them a little bit far forward. And she ended up continuing to drift backwards a little bit. So we didn't end the Atlanta's existence, but man, it was very close. So we'll call out the Atlanta, see if our team can't blap it and get it out of this fight. I'm going to focus my attention over here on the New Mexico, and of course he disappears. We'll throw up our spotting plane just to see if we can't spot him. We do also have the other New Mexico. Okay, so that New Mexico, he's out there. He's not giving us a good broadside, but this New Mexico most assuredly is. We're spotted, but for whatever reason, he's not paying attention, so his loss, my gain. We know the lead that we need. Oh, priority sector reinforcement, 14 seconds of fun, and double Citadel, 34,225 damage. This time, Ryujo loses 1 aircraft, 2 aircraft, 3 aircraft on approach. 4 aircraft, 2 on the exit, and we're going to take that one right on the torpedo belt, which is exactly where we needed to take it. As you saw, it hit far enough aft that had it been any other ship, I would worry about the steering gear getting taken out, but it didn't. So here we are again, New Mexico. We had dropped off detection, which is important, but we got the New Mexico again, so... And 5,600 damage, give or take. Which again doesn't make a whole lot of sense with regards to 2 pens, but we're going to continue to wiggle our butt because Budioni over there, New Mexico, just, you know, doing our best to kind of taunt him a little bit. Up to 73,579 damage. We've tanked 800,000 potential damage. And Ryujo dive bombers coming in this time, so we'll turn on priority sector reinforcement once again. And there's a Citadel and a sink on that New Mexico, up to 90,295 damage. Doing a lot of AA damage, but, you know, shot down 5, and he missed with his dive bombers. His loss, my gain. And our AA is continuing to do some pretty decent work. Ah, there we go. 19 aircraft in total shot down, and we are not going to be able to shoot at the Budioni. All right, so now what? Well, as you can see, we've maximized the amount of broadsides that we've been able to spot in this. That's given us 5 Citadels and 2 sunk ships. So now we need to maximize it again. I was thinking Budioni here would be the one that would come out from this, and, well, shock it's not. It's actually the Hipper who is, oh, well, he's starting to turn out, so, all right. Once again, priority sector reinforcement. We've got some rocket barrage ships, and this is what I was talking about. We did 3,000 damage. How inconsistent. Broadside Hipper all over pens. That's weird. So the Hipper is now very close to death. Ryujo is backed off the rocket planes. We've not taken that much damage. Ooh, Hipper. Quick, somebody kill her. Yeah, she's gonna die. There we go. All right, so now we've got Massachusetts just shooting at me. He misses. We also have the New Mexico. I'm using the island here as a little bit of hard cover from the New Mexico and the Massachusetts to a limited extent. Makes it harder for him to actually engage us. 93,446 damage. And we have dropped off detection. That's why I said that the detection range on this ship is kind of criminal, in my opinion. We just, when we're not wanted to be seen, we just kind of drop off of existence like it's not a big deal. It's no big deal. Yeah, we're going to hold off on firing. Massachusetts is angled enough. Ryujo not really presenting a good target. Kind of waiting for that New Mexico to come around, but we're going to pregame this by turning ourselves away from the Massachusetts, away from the New Mexico, so that when we actually do spot them, yes. All right, so we fired, and we're going to keep up our turn just in case they decide to shoot back at us. And 7,800 damage. 101,000 damage in total. 50 points left on their team. Really kind of bitter and pissed that we didn't get a Citadel hit on that New Mexico. But, you know what? We live to fight another day. If we continue to fight, they're down to 20. We're about to win this, so it's not going to matter a huge amount. And that's going to be the end of the match. So as you can see, the ship is all about positioning. You got to get to a position where you are seeing broadside. 101,269 damage, 2 kills, 5 Citadels. Ended up second on the team with 1643 base XP. Almost 4 million potential damage tanked. Overall, I think California is getting a little bit of a bad reputation in terms of gameplay in the game. I don't think it's a horrible ship. If you're a fan of the US battleships, I think it's a worthwhile pickup, even for its current price. Anyway, I'm Whiskey11. You guys know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the Discord server, link to that in the description of this video. I'll catch you guys on the next one.